Hey, everybody, this is Barry Mankin here with the Holistic Home Health Podcast. We're here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're going to be talking about a personal experience with one of our clients here from our environmental company, and we're going to let her tell her story. So it's going to be really interesting, and we want to make sure that people understand that this can be a process for some people, especially if you're sensitized. Things come into play that most people don't expect. Everybody wants that silver bullet. Everybody wants an easy answer. And in some cases, it gets a little bit difficult. This particular case was pretty, I wouldn't say difficult per se as far as how many things necessarily couldn't be found, but the process and the way we do the process sometimes can be more lengthy than we expect, and we have to be very detailed and take one step at a time. So how we do things is sometimes more important than the what. So we're going to talk about how we got to this point, where she is now, and how she's doing. And we're just going to let her start off, from front to back, and hope you get some perspective and enjoy. So Millie, I want to thank you so much. Millie Hoffman, everybody. Thank you for coming today and be willing to share. This is our first testimonial.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So I would like to see if you could tell us, what's your background? How did you get to Nashville? What brought you here in the first place? Because this started from a real estate transaction. So we'll kind of talk about what led you to the house, and then we'll go from there.
So from Kansas City, Missouri, we've been in Nashville, my husband and I, for, I'm going to get the math wrong, probably 6 years. What started this journey was we purchased a home in December of 2023, and it was like, this is going to be where we're going to be for a really long time. We were finally giving our dogs a backyard. We were so excited about it. And the inspector was like, oh my gosh, this is the cleanest home I've ever inspected. So we were like thrilled. 2-week close, like full blaze ahead, so excited. And we moved in, and I started to get rashes down my neck, which was interesting. We were painting some rooms in the house at the time. I had taken some time off work to do some little things to kind of make it our own. And I thought, okay, this paint maybe is old, or like I'm reacting a little bit to this paint. So it kind of started on my neck, and then like traveling down my chest, my arms, my hands, stomach, my hips, and I was like, okay, that's a little weird. I'm going to stop painting.
Yeah, you're right. Is it just the paint?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, it's the paint. And a lot of my body rashes resolved. The one on my neck kind of lingered for a while, and was doing some testing at the time. So I've always had hypothyroid issues, so that was not surprising to me. Found out I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease. So that was new information. So started to say, okay, rash, Hashimoto's, your thyroid's in your neck, totally makes sense.
Sure.
So this is February of 2024.
Okay.
And so it was like a 3-month wait to see an endocrinologist. And so I was like, okay, taking matters into my own hands. I'm going on the autoimmune diet, which for those who have not done it or don't know about it, it is difficult. It was a transition because I've been eating what I've wanted for the past, 25, 27 years of my life. And so the autoimmune diet is like grass-fed meats, like some fruits, some vegetables, water, no caffeine, which was really challenging.
Right.
Super strict. And so started to do that and started to kind of feel a lot better. Was seeing kind of a little bit of improvement. And typically you do that for 30, 60, 90 days. And, as time is going on, I'm just starting to feel worse. So I'm okay, I'm playing pickleball all the time. I'm doing the healthiest diet possible, sleeping well. This is interesting. And started to so rash, I tried everything, cortisone, nothing would resolve this. Started to see some other things pop up. So dizziness, fatigue, buzzing, ringing in my ears. I would start to get rashes above and beneath my eyes, styes in my eyes. This crazy throat pressure where I felt like I was being choked. Like while I'm
Really?
working, it was the craziest thing. Like I'm working in my office and it literally feels like someone is like choking me. And it's like,
Oh, man.
you feel like you're like losing like blood flow in your head. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And so start to kind of have all of this going on. And then it got to a point, we're like getting into the summer months now where it's warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wake up every morning with like either one or both of my eyes like totally swollen shut. And I'm like, all right, this is not normal. I mean, I'm doing like everything possible that I can be doing from a health standpoint to like be feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just getting worse. And these are like bizarre symptoms at this point.
How long have you been in the house at that point?
We bought it in December, and I think
So getting into summer,
getting into summer.
you're 6 months in.
Yeah, was when it started to get really bad. And then I had a couple of instances where I was in and out of the emergency room. I forgot that happened. This has been a journey.
Yeah.
I went twice. I was having like crazy like pain like near my liver, and like couldn't eat. It was really bizarre, and found out I had kidney stones, which I didn't have before.
And so far, you're not even thinking about environmental issues
No.
at this point.
No, I'm just like, Jesus, this is so bizarre.
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
what's happening.
Yeah.
What else can I be doing? And so we went on a trip in June, our anniversary trip, and we were out of the house for like 10 days.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I feel better. Now, obviously, we're like in Montana. It's beautiful. We're outside all day, hiking, doing all the things. So like,
Yeah, amazing.
you of course feel better when you're doing that and you're not working.
And it's Montana.
And it's Montana. It's beautiful. But so that was interesting to me that I kind of started to notice like some of those things resolve a little bit. And I totally forgot to mention, I was also at the time working with a functional medicine, Tennessee alternative medicine doctor.
Okay.
And I had done some muscle testing, and they noticed mold and a couple of things popping up that they called it out, but I was like, oh, maybe everyone kind of has that. Like, again, I didn't know anything at the time. And I was working on a couple of things in addition to doing the diet. And I coincidentally had another appointment with that doctor like a couple of days after we got back from Montana. And she was like, oh, like you're testing a little bit better. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I don't know at what point we, I finally had, gosh, I can't remember. I think what got you out in the first place?
Well, I've got a letter here from August. That's when we started.
Okay.
Early August is when we have you on record here.
That's right. So I remember, actually, I met you in 2022.
At a fair or something.
2022, I think, at Enliven Wellness in Franklin.
Shout out for Danny Williamson.
Yes.
She's a good lady.
So I had gone to that conference with a couple of friends, and we met. I remember talking to you at the booth, and you were telling me all these things. I'm like, well, I don't really need these things right now, but sounds cool.
Yeah.
And I got your card.
Yeah.
And then when I finally, I think, made this connection of like, okay, I think maybe there's something in this house. Again, not even suspecting mold.
Yeah.
I had also reached out for some recommendations, and your name came up. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've met this guy, called you. I think you were out pretty quick. And we did just like full home diagnostic. We tested for like radon.
Yeah.
We did everything.
I think we did like a baseline.
Yeah.
At least. It's kind of like our middle thing that we do, right? And so we looked at the whole house. You know, we looked, and I got a history on the house. Everything that we talked about here, we did some air sampling. You know, we did some physical stuff as well, physical sampling, radon, and then the investigation. So basically, we just kind of look at a good overview of the house from an environmental standpoint and say, okay, if there's something obvious here, we should find it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think, if I remember correctly, the interior of the home didn't really raise any red flags, but crawl space did.
We have on the report here, I show that the air sampling in that particular case initially showed high concentrations of several types of molds, including Aspergillus and Chaetomium, which is a mycotoxin-related mold. These were noted in the air and on the surface in high concentration, which is consistent with prolonged water damage. And then we talked about some history, which I'll let you get into.
So crawl space, I know we went down in there.
I did.
And we started to kind of piece together. So when we bought the home, well, listing of the home, it was originally listed, pulled off the market, relisted probably in like a 3-week time period. I didn't think anything of it at the time. And we did a bunch of investigation with like kind of going back through steps. And I had some warranty documents of different things. Figured out that the home was listed, pulled off the market, crawl space was remediated for mold, dehumidifier put in, encapsulated in that time.
Was any of that disclosed?
No. Which would have been good to know, because I probably would have explored that a little bit more. Again, I think, like, as a home buyer in that situation, I was naive, because I hadn't been through an experience like this to know some of that stuff. But that's where you rely on who you're working with to know those things. And so, right, like in the state of Tennessee, now I've learned you should always get a mold inspection, right? Yes. And I'll do that anywhere I live at this point, whether it's in Antarctica or Florida.
There are molds that will work in Antarctica.
Know.
Yeah.
Noted.
They've even got them on the space shuttle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, good to know. It's everywhere. Anyway, so, but that's right where it's like you're an excited home buyer.
Yeah.
You're paying someone and relying on that person to know what to do in those situations and ask the right questions if a home's pulled off the market and like certain things are done and right. So lessons learned. But we did figure out, obviously after purchasing, after doing some investigation, that the crawl space was remediated and all of that in between the time that it was originally listed, pulled off the market, and relisted. And we didn't know that.
Now we have to do investigation stuff. Now we're investigators, and you were like a sleuth with this stuff, because every time I would come back, and we've been there many times.
Yeah.
Should know it by heart by now.
Yeah.
But like we would come back, and you're like, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Now I know this. Like the reconnaissance, like to be able to, like, for me to pull into there and say, okay, now where are we at in the process, you know? And then you would have all this information for me to be able to use, and it was so helpful.
I had a part-time job, PI.
Yeah.
So.
There you go.
Yeah. But anyway, so we figured all that out at the crawl space. And so when you were there for the first time, you went down there, and you did notice that there was still some mold down there. And so that company came back out, honored that. We took care of that.
Yeah, that was great.
Which was great. No problem.
And they also validated, I think, some of those things that you investigated to say, yes, this was the condition at the time.
Yes.
However, they don't do the upstairs.
Yes, they did not do interior. However, they had suggested to the previous owner, you should probably check the subfloor. They did not.
Which usually is in a disclosure.
Yeah. So anyway, that didn't happen. Okay. So did the initial testing, and then we ended up moving out because I was from a health standpoint, like I was feeling terrible. I work from home, but I'm on camera all day, and like my eyes were like swollen shut. I'm like, I can't be doing this. So we ended up getting an Airbnb for a little bit, while we kind of tried to figure out what our next steps were. And then knowing that we needed to check the subfloor, my husband and I went over with a hammer. We ripped up some suspicious floorboards. They were
like it was like a test spot that you knew you wanted to remodel
anyway
or something,
it was.
Right?
We were going to remodel the well, maybe not now, but we were going to remodel the bathroom at the time. It was like in between our master bedroom into the bathroom, and there were some floorboards that were kind of like starting to separate. And I think when you were there initially, you put a moisture meter on it. It wasn't like anything crazy, but it was like, maybe.
There was enough elevated.
But it's like you're in a bathroom space, so maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. And you didn't want to totally tear our house up in the first visit.
Yeah.
So we took that upon ourselves, and we pulled a few floorboards, and oh my goodness, it was the thickest black mold I've ever seen. Not that I've seen a lot of mold at that point, but I Googled it.
Yeah.
And there was quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So, of course, called Barry in panic, sent pictures, and I'm like, found it.
Yep.
And so, again, we'd already moved out at that point. But then we started to kind of think about, okay, what's what's next. So you came out, tested it so we would know exactly what we were working with. Chitomium was crazy, but then I think you can kind of explain how you talk about like everyone comes to the party, right? Because like the original test was like had some stuff and then it went crazy.
Yeah, I love how you're using my verbiage there. So here's how this works. When you have like water loss or there's a history of that water loss and it is trapped for any length of time, unless it dries up really quick, and the permeability of whatever materials are associated with that dries up really quick, those become food sources. So the longer it stays wet, the bigger the party gets, right? So it's kind of like a pool party if you think about it.
Yeah.
But so, that's a terrible joke.
Not a pool party I want to go to.
Not a pool party, yeah. So it's like a dad joke or something. But the idea is that, the longer that sits there, those types of molds start to come, the bad actors that I'll say, like chitomium. Stachybotrys is in there with that too sometimes. So usually those are like our top two. Like if we see those, or like high yeast, as a target, because it needs a lot of moisture as well, that becomes more of an issue. So those are indicators to say, hey, we really, really may have a problem here. So if we get one spore of any of those, we know that there's a party going on somewhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you hear the music in the background, and you're like in the block party back when they used to do that stuff when I was growing up, and you say, all right, that isn't normal. That's either going to be really fun, or in this case, it's going to be really, really bad. Yeah. So what we found at this point, at this stage, before you did that, I have another letter here where we actually did a clearance because we did some remediation with a local remediation company who is probably the top company in town, and it cleared. We had a little caveat to say, as long as this is done and this is done, it should be good, because it wasn't in the air and it wasn't on the specific surfaces. So what we had at that point is what we would call trapped mold, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to be affected by it.
Yeah.
Because the proteins, the beta-glucans, all those are available still to a sensitized person, and you've already been sensitized by it. And this is never, if I understood correctly at the beginning, you hadn't been sensitized by anything. You had some other issues, but not necessarily mold related that you knew of.
Maybe in my life, and I never made the connection,
right?
But not that I was aware of.
Now you're kind of putting these two together to say, hey, this is really either part of the problem or all of the problem.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that spot there, but I had given a clearance, which is kind of the standard in the industry, right? Mm-hmm. And I even said we did have a couple of spots. We said even there's some indicators that were still there, and the only thing that I alluded to was further assessment, maybe given for areas of history, because at that point we didn't know about the history of the floor.
Yeah.
Until this time, and even though the mold was gone, we got this new history and talked to the other remediation company. I'm like, okay, we need to look at. And so instead of us tearing up the floor, which I don't do that, but like the remediator didn't tear up the floor because he's like, unless we have a reason, we don't want to do that. So you guys took it upon yourself. Boom. Yeah. Here we are.
Yes. So you came back out, and we kind of validated, okay, what are we dealing with? And they were some pretty crazy numbers in that area of the home, since we basically unleashed the party, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, what do we do now? Now I can't undo what I just did. So we covered it with plastic, and again, we were not living there at the time. So at that point, I said, okay, who do I need to work with? Because we're like stressed out. I'm not feeling well. This is kind of the point where it's like, I need to rely on like the right people to help me figure this out. And so from a health standpoint, I said, okay, I've clearly got some stuff going on. Who do I need to work with? And so got a recommendation to work with Dr. Potter at Sanctuary of Functional Medicine, which has been great. Still working with him. And then on the remediation side, Mickey at EPS, who you've also, I think, had on here. So got on his schedule. I can't remember at what point he came out, but basically the plan was we'll pull the floorboards until we find where this stops. So at this point, we're like, could be just the bedroom, bathroom, could be the whole house.
That's where we I think we stopped at
Yeah.
at the master bedroom.
We did.
Because we saw the water trail.
Yeah.
Or Mickey saw the
Yeah.
water trailer at that point. He was like, okay.
It ran out. Yeah.
It ran out.
Yeah. And
Which
so
is good news at that point.
we took it as great news because
Yeah.
we were like, okay, because we were totally expecting we're ripping out this whole first floor
Right.
at that point. And I think we're in like August, September, maybe.
We're in October at this
October?
point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, great news. Mickey was like, it ran out. It really wasn't actually as bad as we thought. And so we took care of that, cleaned everything up, and we moved back in. And
Because we got a clearance for that too.
we got a clearance
and
after.
that's this letter here. And I said
Yep.
it passes the PRV.
Yep.
With the understanding that the remediator will put some sealant on the subfloor in this location because it's a subfloor. It's hard sometimes to
Yeah.
get out of that MDF board to get every little spore out of it. So if I have one raw, I'm like, we still need a level of action. And as long as it's dry and we've done everything by the standards and we've gone over it a couple of times, okay, then maybe we just put a layer of some sort of a sealant as a layer of precaution. There's no other indicator at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
So we thought we were good. We did that. We were thrilled to move in because when we first moved out, we're thinking, oh my gosh, like we're tearing this whole house down. And it ended up looking like it wasn't that bad. So we moved back in, and I immediately, I think within a day,
Yeah.
I
remember that.
was
yeah.
like, okay, not feeling better. Because I was feeling better when I was out of the house. It was like a switch. We were in an Airbnb, and I don't think there was any mold in that house because I was feeling pretty good. And so we moved back in. Immediately was like having that just like feeling like I was going to pass out, and the itchiness and the eye swelling, just everything like flooded back basically. And I think some of this can kind of be mental sometimes, where you almost like are like, I'm afraid to be in my house at this point. And so like you kind of like sitting there and you're overthinking about it and you're analyzing every possible thing that you feel. And so I was like, okay, I just need to like chill out. It's probably fine. Like we got a clear letter, like they took care of it. And starts to kind of keep persisting for a couple of days. And then I think I ended up going to stay at a friend's house. I'm like starting to like test this, where I would like go sleep at a friend's house and I would feel better. And then I would come back and I felt worse. And so I was like, all right.
You've got your own scientific process at this point, just anecdotal.
Yeah.
Where it's not quantitative, but it's anecdotal, and you're saying, okay, let me just double check this. And again, kudos to you you had your head screwed on straight to be able to say, let's take a step back. Let me think about this rationally.
Yeah.
And let's do a process. And you, this is what I'll say is which I won't go too far down this road yet, but having you be that level-headed in a process that is a little bit more difficult, honestly, especially when we're like, hey, you're good, right? And yet still having the faith in the process to say, hey, we need to reassess. When there's a pain point, it's our job to get to the root of the house. And there's levels of this stuff. And sometimes we think that that's the source, and as long as we don't have any other direct indicators for the level of testing that we're doing, we think we're okay until there's another pain point, and then we need to reassess. And so this journey can be extended, but for you to have that mindset was so helpful for us. So how much I appreciate
Thank you.
that. And again, this is where it's like, hey, which is why you're here. It's like, hey, we've got a great story here now. But that has a lot to do with you and the way you approach this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where you're in it. There's no going to sleep and waking up tomorrow and it's gone. It's like, we have to figure this out.
Yeah.
So, I was like starting to test the theory of like going to different places. At this point, I'm considering a part-time job of like mold inspecting, because I'm like, I'll tell you if there's mold in here because my eyes will swell up.
Just like the dogs, right?
Just like the mold dogs.
The mold dogs.
Yeah.
And their tail sticks out and they point,
Yeah.
Everybody's got their sense, and We had a
Yes.
whole thing on that, but we'll deal with that later.
So I basically like, okay, there's something else
Yeah.
going on. Like obviously we didn't get it all. There's more to do here.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to get an apartment, which was not ideal, on top of a mortgage, but we had to do what we had to do from a health standpoint. I literally could not be in that house without feeling just miserable. And so we got the shortest lease we could, which I think was 7 months, which turns out we'll get there. That was exactly about how long the rest of this process took. So nailed that. But so we ended up getting an apartment, and I'm not sure if this is something you've talked about, but like your stuff, right? Mold gets on your stuff. And if you are sensitive, if you've got like a shirt, right, that's like been sitting in my moldy closet.
I didn't talk to her about this.
Okay, well, right? So it's like that stuff now has exactly what the problem is on it. Do you take it with you? And so like we at this point, like we've got nothing. We grabbed a couple of things when we left because we didn't really know at the time like severity. And so we get an apartment, and I walk into this apartment, and I'm like, okay, well, we have nothing. We had like no furniture. I had like a bag of clothes and like my work laptop. And there's also this like theory that like when you get out of mold, your body finally is like, okay, I can heal now. And you feel worse. And so I went into this like 2-week period where I couldn't get out of bed for like anything without feeling like I'm going to throw up, pass out. Like it was awful.
Now, you're trying to detox, and your body's fighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I was starting to work with Dr. Potter at this point too. And he's like, yeah, that might happen. And we're starting to kind of like do some of the testing and figure out, okay, what's in my body? Like what's going on? So like a lot of things going on at this point, and then also trying to coordinate, okay, we've got to get Barry back out here and probably Mickey to figure out what's left. Where's the other source?
This is where we start to get into the weeds a little bit, and we start to do different types of testing.
Yeah.
So this is where the mycotoxin category comes up.
Yeah.
That part comes up, and then also we start to get our sleuth hat on and say, okay, what are the potentials here? And at this point, money is always one of the drivers.
Yep.
And so our approach is always, we don't want to be on the hook, for, hey, you need to rip up all your floors, right? Unless it's justified.
Yeah.
And so the only justification right now is to say, hey, we need numbers to tell us. Because, like, if we start pulling up your whole, because you got to repair the whole floor, there's no break in that floor unless you're at a room, right?
Yeah.
And so that risk was like, okay, we can do some core samples from below. There's different ways that we've done that in the past for people, but your square footage on that first floor is big.
Yeah, it's over 2,000 square feet, I think. So it was a lot of floor.
That's a lot of hardwood.
Yeah.
So that can be expensive. So we were trying to come up with different methods of doing that, and we took some more samples of different things, and then the mycotoxin thing came up because that is a thing. It's a big controversy, in my industry, and it's a big controversy for the public because everybody's scared of it. Dr. Potter finds some things, and we're trying to build a bridge between the medical community and the environment to say, okay, as long as everybody stays in their lane and we share information, maybe we bring a tide to the environment. And the mycotoxin thing is so hard to deal with, and there's different methods now. Every year there's a new lab and a new testing method at that lab, so it gets pretty nerdy.
Yeah.
So you were right in the midst of that, and at that time, we were still experimenting with a few things. So,
yeah. And so some of the testing, I think, came back suggestive of, like, there's a lot of spores in this area on the floor, and we already kind of knew we had that influence from the crawl space, and we had the other area of in the subfloor where there was mold, and at this point, we didn't have any other ideas of where the source was. Nothing else from testing standpoint was like telling us where else it could be coming from. And so we made the decision, we've got to rip up all the floors.
I thought it started in your office, though. Didn't you do your office first?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
it was at the other end of the house.
Yes, that's right. And I work from home, so I'm in my office all day, and I was always feeling terrible. And you're right. It's a lot to remember in this story.
Right, right. But
So
that justified doing the rest.
That's right. There was suggestion. There was a high elevation of, I think, aspergillus
In that room.
in the office around the register, right where you kind of like get to the subfloor a little bit, right around the register.
Correct.
And so we were moved out at the time, and my husband and I are like, okay, obviously finances come into all these decisions. And so we're trying to, as much as we can, try and take on some of the demo and whatnot to try and alleviate some of the costs.
And you were doing some of it at the time, correct?
I had
The sensitized person was doing the demo.
I had a full hazmat suit, goggles, and an N95 mask. And I'm sure the neighbors, because they didn't know at this point, were like, this woman is crazy. And yes, so we demoed my office and pulled all of the floors out. And it was, I don't know what kind of, it wasn't hardwood in that room.
No, it was
like a laminate or something.
Yeah, it was like a it was like a pergo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it had an underlayment, like a rubbery kind of underlayment between that and the subfloor. We pulled that out, and it was white, black, gunky, kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I knew that was
There we
obviously
go.
mold. Yeah.
We actually had a hit of chitomium in that room too at
We
that
may
time.
have, yeah.
That justified you pulling it up.
Yeah. So we ripped that room up, and at this point, we're like, okay, it was in the bedroom, all the way across the house. It's in the office. My God, we're going to have to take all these floors out.
Yeah, now it's the whole first floor.
So,
And this was in November, middle of
yeah,
November.
so we're making our way through the year here. So, we got on the schedule with Mickey, and I think he didn't have anything until like February.
Yeah, because then here's the other thing. That's the dynamic, the logistics of the process. Because we think we're done. They're booking out for other people. And thank God it was in a season that it's not like summer.
Yeah.
Because you would have been...
Yeah. And that even was a significant wait at that point because, you know, we're wanting to get back home. But, like, yes, it was the quickest we could get
You can
in.
always make lemonade out of lemons, right?
Yes.
So.
And so we get on the schedule, and we, again, cost is a factor here.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we could have paid Mickey and his team to rip up these hardwood floors, and that would have been a significant bump in the estimate to do that, which he was willing to do.
Yeah.
Or we could do it. And so, again, I was gonna help do that, and my dad was a saint, and he flew in, and he figured out with some like sledgehammer a method, and he ripped out the entire, and it's traditional hardwood, so like they're in there, and he tore out the whole first floor, and my husband helped as well. I supervised from through the window, and
You missed a spot.
yeah. Well, I'm there like trying to look at everything and see like, okay, what does it look like? How much is there?
Yeah, right.
And so we got dumpster, like we demoed the whole thing. And we also, before we did that, moved all of our belongings out. I talked about like how it can get on your stuff.
We staged a bunch in the garage.
Yeah, so we luckily have two, like a back detached garage in addition to our garage. So we were able to put everything, thankfully, in the two garages. So we didn't have to get like storage or anything, which was nice. So got everything out before we did that, and we did the floors and everything. So it's like, okay, this house is down to like ready for Mickey to come in and do his thing. And you came out, I think, as well, and did some testing on some of the boards we pulled out and everything. And
yeah, that's where we got a little bit deeper and said, okay, we need to be more specific. This is where, you know, we're kind of diving into that full assessment as it relates to the amount of sampling, specific things, and starting to isolate, especially since we had access from hidden mold. Because when it's trapped, it's trapped. It doesn't always present, the spore itself has a certain size to it. And if that size doesn't present itself either in the air or on a surface, it's trapped. But it doesn't mean it's still not affecting you for sensitized people. So the big thing with this is there was tar paper, which is something that they typically did in construction of that era of home in between the hardwood and the subfloor.
Yep.
And that is a petroleum-based product, and it is basically it breaks down, just like any other live thing that can have access to enzymes or anything that can break it down. It will off gas, you know, as that breakdown process happens. When it has moisture or typically heat, you can have that effect. So that particular product is has some biological aspect to it. So what happens is mold uses that as a food source, other than the wood, because it's more permeable than the wood itself. Even though everything has its layer of absorbing that moisture, that's the first, kind of like drywall.
Yeah.
Drywall is going to get it first, and you're going to start growing things on that because it's a faster rate. It holds on to it longer, blah, blah, blah. So what happens is, because we know the history of what happened from the crawl space, we knew that that hardwood had been cupped, and that had been verified by different people. And that tells us, okay, there was moisture. And if we have a type of underlayment that is subject to growth as a food source, that had that potential. Now we want to find out what type so we can tie it to your doctor, because he said Aspergillus penicillium is what he was finding.
We had a little bit of everything, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that was a big one,
Yeah.
a big marker. And we found that in high concentration on that laminate.
Yeah. I mean, it was everywhere. It was in the bedroom too.
Everywhere.
It was really
Yeah.
the whole first floor, which was what we thought originally. We're
Yeah.
trying to take the steps of like, let's not rip up the whole house first. And
Yeah. And
eventually
now
we
we're
ended
like,
up-
oh, we got the root of the issue,
yeah,
right? For the most part.
wrong. The story continues.
Right.
So, let's see. We get everything taken care of. Mickey comes back out, scrubbing the subfloor, doing everything that we have to do, HEPA vacuuming, everything. And this is where we get into, right, like trying new technologies a little bit as far as like what's out there, because
Yeah.
I'm also starting to think, okay, are the mycotoxins like the problem? Is it more of the mold? Is it both? And we had some mycotoxin presence in the house just because of the mold being there.
And we're being told stuff to say, hey, if you use our product or if you use our method, you're going to get rid of the mycotoxins. So it's got to be the mycotoxins, right?
Yeah.
Which, again, this is a big argument. So, like, just know that there's tension there. So we're trying to apply some of these experimental processes with you because we just came into, the diagnosis part of it. I've got different ways to do that. And that's still ongoing. And then B, from a solutions end, Mickey's trying stuff on the solutions end that we've never tried before.
Yeah.
And so you're the guinea pig for us at that point. You're like,
I was open to anything.
let's help this girl.
At this point, I will try anything. Yeah. So, but what we did try, it seemed like we had taken care of a lot of the mycotoxins, but we removed a lot of the source. And so,
and the debris associated with it.
Yeah. So what we did, like the house was very clean. And so, again, I start to then use my body to test the theory. So we get everything taken care of.
Canary in the coal mine. Yep.
The home is clean. We just have subfloor at this point. I'm like, I don't care. I'll live on subfloor. We don't need floors. And so I started to go stay at the house and just kind of see how I felt. Also trying to be aware of like, let's not overthink this. Let's not get too hyped up about it. Let's not like totally overanalyze everything I feel. Let's just kind of see how things go. And was going pretty well. And
better, but not.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was not feeling as great as I was when we were in the apartment, which I think it was like a safe environment for us. But I was definitely not on the scale of where I was before. And through all of this, Barry and I were talking about, okay, when we get back in the house, like what should we do in the home to make sure that like we also kind of get on the offense too, and like we're doing the like filtration and all of that stuff.
Right.
And so Copeland was a recommendation that you had made.
Shout out to Nathan Copeland.
Yeah.
He was on here.
Yeah, and so he came out, and we were looking at doing like inline filtration, basically like you've probably heard of an air doctor, everybody, that you can get to purify the air. It's kind of like that, like but inside the HVAC, right? Inline.
Yeah,
somewhat.
hospital grade filtration
Yeah.
inline. Yeah.
And so we were kind of evaluating if that would be something we wanted to do, because we're trying to kind of do everything to be able to live in this home. And he came out and he was like, found another problem. And turns out the HVAC was full of mold. And so we totally thought we'd fixed the problem with the floors, and we
Right.
totally thought that was the only problem.
Right.
We were wrong.
Yeah.
The HVAC was totally full.
And that was the blower motor itself.
Yeah.
Which is it was a package unit on the outside of the house, and then you have a split system upstairs.
Yeah.
And that upstairs wasn't even considered
No,
in this whole process.
because we're totally thinking everything's down here on the first floor.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So the blower motors themselves are usually in different sections. Unless you're getting a diagnostic on that system, it's really, it's one of those things that has to be investigated really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, I'm feeling like pretty good. We're back in the house. We're like now thinking about putting the floors in. We're just doing preventative work on the HVAC. Bomb dropped.
Yeah.
HVAC's full of mold. And we're like, oh my gosh, gotta be kidding. And so I start to, freak out, obviously, because I'm like, okay, let's turn the HVAC off and let's open the windows, and I don't want to breathe this air. And tried to remain calm, but I think I called you right away, maybe, or I think maybe I called Mickey. I'm not sure who I called, but probably
Yeah,
both
we were
of you.
at this point, like
Everyone's working together.
We have a network,
Yeah.
which is what you need, and everybody's involved at this point. Just like if a doctor comes in and you're in the care of a hospital or whatever, you've got the people that do your general care, you've got your nurses, you've got your specialty people,
Yep.
heart doctor, cancer, whatever it is. Everybody's involved at that point for the care.
Yep.
And you've built this out with a network that you use through us to say, hey, these are the top people in town.
Yep.
And when you have that support, we're all talking.
Yeah.
Like
I
to say, hey,
think
what did you see?
Yeah, one of you already knew about it before I
Yeah.
told, because everyone was in conversation, and so got someone out.
Yeah.
It was a Friday we found it. Monday morning, someone was out to fix it, and so we got that totally cleaned.
Awesome.
Everything was good, and then we also ended up doing the duct work again.
Again.
Totally resanitized the duct work.
Yep.
I think we did additional testing at that point to validate the duct work was clean.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I think we're done.
Yeah.
I think. And again, I'm still like feeling mostly okay, like a couple things popping up here and there. I hadn't mentioned this at this point.
And we're getting into February now
Yeah.
of this year. End of
Yes.
February at that point, right?
Yeah. We've made our way through the story here, and
I've got timeline on my email of reports here.
yeah. And one thing I've totally forgot to mention at this point is through testing with Dr. Potter, we figured out that I have Lyme disease, which I didn't know, chronic Lyme disease. And those who have those underlying types of infections are really susceptible to reacting to mold.
Right.
And so at this point, too, we've got the data to say, mold is clear. So anything that I'm feeling at this point, I'm like, okay, well, it could be the Lyme disease, too. So it's like you gotta kind of factor that in as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like this tension between, symptoms, diagnosis, between the body and the house.
Yeah.
And because it was complex on your end and it's complex on this end, it's a tug of war.
Yeah, it's a tangled web.
And you're literally trying to like compress and make sure that the effects on the outsides aren't bad, and you're trying to take care, your doctor's trying to take care of over here, you're trying to take care of. And then we kind of bring it in to hone in to narrow the margin of errors or the potentials that can be there, and then try to get to the very last root of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So at this point, we think we've got it, and we're like, okay, we're going to put new floors in, which we ended up doing, and I started feeling bad again, and I called Barry, and I'm like, there might be more.
Yeah.
And turns out it was just like VOCs from the like floor installation, and like the glue and stuff like that was giving me a pretty bad headache. And that's obviously all dissipated. It's been a while since we did that.
Yeah.
But when I was feeling bad again, and of course freaked out for the millionth time in this story and suspecting another mold problem, Barry came out and we did the Instascope.
It's in March.
Yeah, we did the Instascope.
Yeah. We did a whole thing on that on the last podcast.
Yeah.
It's still yet to come out, but yeah.
Yeah, so we did some, really probably the best testing you can do at this point.
There's not a better machine on the planet.
Yeah.
But everything has its limitations.
Yeah.
But using it as a diagnostic tool to kind of hunt for things, to where to take a sample potentially, or at least see what the overall load is or a source point, nothing better.
Yeah. So at that point, Barry was like, look, it's just VOCs. These are going to dissipate a little bit. Just air out the house. It's probably from the floors. Really didn't find anything from a mold standpoint. Nothing else additional we were going to investigate. So we're like, at that point, we're like, we've got it all. And I think we have gotten it all.
Well, what we did find upstairs, again, I couldn't remember the timeline with what we did, but what we did upstairs is we did find microbial
That's right. We did. Carpet.
that
Couches.
was mentioned on the front end
Yep.
to say, hey, clean these things or remove these things,
Mm-hmm.
even though they weren't directly related to down below, because we had the effects of the HVAC upstairs.
That's right.
And we had previous mold concentration numbers in one of those rooms, in one of those recent air samples I think we did. We just assumed that that was done through the duct work, and then we did some cleaning, but we didn't like do a deep clean of the carpet. We
Yeah.
didn't do a deep clean on the couches.
That's right.
We had a history of a water source at a window that I thought presented itself later.
Yeah, which we did take care of.
Yeah, that was kind of like a separate thing almost. Yeah.
But yes, you're right. And so we did. Upstairs was mostly fine, but like
And the TVs too, I got some hits
the TVs, but like, and we had cleaned all these things on our own
on.
with like a HEPA vacuum and wiping things down and like small particle cleaning.
Yeah. Everywhere
but-
else.
Right. Yeah. And we had even done that couch actually ourselves. It's just right. We were doing it the best that we knew how to from YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think if we had maybe done air sampling, it might not, like just general air sampling, it may not have shown up. I don't know. Instascope caught it because it's a little bit finer. And so we ended up having ProCare come out and they
Shout out to ProCare.
They did. We got the whole network here.
Exactly.
But so they ended up doing some professional cleaning on like the carpets and stuff like that. So,
Well, there is no substitute for intentionality, keeping a level head, cleaning. And the whole joke in our industry is what's really clean. And I literally just came from a conference with the top guys on the planet. They're all talking the same thing that the ASHRAE conference is talking about, that the cleaners conference is talking about with the guys that do carpet cleaning. And everybody says the same thing, whether it's mycotoxins, what have you. So from the top, academics, the scientists, all the way down from the guys that come from the ground up, the conversation is the same. It's what's really clean. And when we can see things that nobody else can see with the instrumentation and a process that works, we will get to the root of the issues. But you are literally having effects or reactions to sitting on that couch, which was the only thing that was left, getting in that room, and we found some stuff on the TVs. The reason we found stuff on the backs of the televisions is because that's where the fan is to keep the television cool, and it draws air in historically. So there was a little bit of history right there, but the Instascope caught it. And so literally we had a source point. And again, it's just residual. It's not like it's growing from there, but it is a residual effect that needs to be cleaned. And we could be that specific with it, and you needed that specificity within your space. But literally, we're honing it in from here to here to here to here to here.
Yeah.
And now look where we're at.
I know.
We're on a podcast.
Everything's good. We have the cleanest home on the block. Hopefully.
Well, you definitely
Probably do.
Yes. By the time you're done with the process, it's literally it's better than you had it when it was first built.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that cleaning process happened on the front end.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're doing now. Tell me, you and your husband, like, you're just enjoying the house.
We're happy to be home.
Puppy's happy.
Oh my gosh, the dogs are so happy to have their yard back. They're like, "Why did you move me to this 600 square foot apartment for 7 months? This was terrible." And I'm like, "I agree, guys. It was terrible."
Yeah.
But we at every step, it's like we're evaluating like what makes the most sense from a health standpoint, financially, with the facts that we know, and so of course we wish it was a much shorter process than it has been, but this is where we're at, and we've been successful, which is amazing to be able to be home and be in our home and not feel terrible every second of every day.
What'd your doctor say?
So going well. We're not doing mold treatment anymore. I've been doing like a mold detox protocol since, I don't know, September probably. So done with that. We're just doing like Lyme treatment right now, which is separate from the mold stuff. And so blood work is looking really, really good, which is awesome. Better than it looked before I even
Yeah.
had mold. Like my thyroid blood work is better now than it was like 5 years ago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So everything's good there, and we're just enjoying being home finally and being able to relax and not have to worry about all these other things. So
I can't tell you how happy it makes me
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the reason we're into this. Obviously, like we all have to make a living at something, right? And this was our path. But for me to be able to be a part of a process to say, "Hey, we're not going to give up on you," and I've got buddies that are the
Yeah.
best in town, and it works. The process works,
Yep.
but sometimes the process is long, and sometimes the process is more difficult than others. And at the end of the day, our job is to remove sources and to be preventative. So we did some prevention things there too.
Yep.
We got into technology and filtration.
Yep.
That is part of prevention, and there's more layers too, which we talked about too. It's like, how far do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
That helps to have a little bit of offense and defense. For sensitized people, I think that's a requirement, honestly.
Yeah.
But as far as the process itself and coming in on the other side of that and saying, okay, I believe we're at the end. Let's reassess if we need to. Your attitude through the whole process is what makes it work. Because if we don't have somebody that's willing to have a level head or be curious enough or to experiment on their own to validate this from an anecdotal standpoint, which is what you did. You did your work just as much as we were doing our work because we need to meet in the middle to say, hey, is this environmental thing actually working? And to me, that's when it really works the best.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard, a lot of people jump ship.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, that testing I read on Facebook.
We wanted to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Because it's like people don't really understand the scope of it.
Yeah.
And when it's hard, it's just hard.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
yeah.
too, like I think I shared this with you before of like the position that we were in, like totally stressed out of our home, me feeling terrible. It's kind of like, okay, we need to find the right people that are gonna like help carry the load of this.
Mm-hmm.
We probably could have gone out and hired other people that maybe aren't as reputable, and maybe we would have gotten here, maybe probably not. But like we were in that position of like, okay, who do we need to work with?
Mm-hmm.
We built this network around like all facets of like the testing, the remediation, the health standpoint for me so that we could do the work on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it was like much longer than anyone wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just the reality of it. I was talking to my husband last night about like the next home we buy someday, how meticulous we will be, and talking about like the repairs you ask for, right, from the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, this door
That's
doesn't
where the negotiation
yeah,
is.
it's like this door doesn't close right. This window's a little like,
Right.
those are things where it's like black and white. I can fix that. But the mold is like, it takes a long time. It's not a simple fix. You can't just replace a hinge on a door and be like, yep, it's fine.
When you see mold, you're dealing with colonies of mold at that point.
Yeah.
Whether it's from relative humidity or whether there's a source behind a wall or whatever. By the time you see it, it's obvious. It's like, okay. And it's probably a bigger than what you're seeing. Or it's inherent through other parts or the HVAC or whatever. But again, if you have, again, you did your research to find out who to get. We're very thankful that we had the opportunity, And of course, I'm going to give you my best, which is like, all right, I know these guys, that they do what they do well. I do what I do well, and we're going to help. And so to me, it's a privilege to be able to do it. And it's rare that we get to be on the other side of this on a long journey.
Yeah.
To say, hey, we stuck it out together and we made it.
Yeah.
And so this is like the nines for me. I love it. So I'm just so thankful for you being willing to share this and trust the process again. And again, you did your investigation on the front end too. Like you have to vet. You vetted us. I mean, I know you were like, hey, are these guys legit?
Yeah.
And you're checking every one of us out, and you should do that. Like anytime you have a problem, vet us. and doesn't mean we're perfect, because like it wasn't a perfect process.
We had hiccups, but
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
But
it was a
we're human.
partnership.
Yeah.
I think too, like I could always tell you valued the health aspect of it too. You're not just here to say there's mold or there's not mold, and Mickey's not just there to say, hey, we took the mold out.
Yeah.
It's
and take your money and
exactly.
say, thanks, see ya.
Yeah.
That's
So,
not what we're here for.
Yeah. So.
And I appreciate the trust too.
Yeah.
So congratulations. And yeah.
Yeah. We're excited to be here, and there's lessons learned. And so I was telling Barry earlier, I was working at a coffee shop earlier today.
Oh yeah.
And
that's right. Yeah.
this is a crazy story. I was sitting outside, and it was about to start raining, I guess. And these guys were like, oh my gosh, it's going to start raining. I couldn't see behind me. And I'd asked them, and I was like, oh no, I have to walk across town for a podcast. I hope it doesn't rain. And, they were asking more information about what podcast I'm doing. We're in Nashville, so like people are probably assuming it's like pop culture or something. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm doing a mold podcast.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, tell me more. And I was telling him, and he said, I had mold. I have been through this. And he was telling me about how, he hired some people and ended up ripping up his whole house and ripping out the whole HVAC and couldn't figure it all out.
Right.
He was like, I just sold it. I couldn't figure it out. And he was sick as well. And then when he moved out, he was feeling better.
And if he sold it and he disclosed it,
Yeah.
he lost money because somebody else has to fix it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's going to be on somebody.
Sure.
But when it's shared like that and somebody doesn't do it right on the front end,
Yeah.
somebody's going to end up eating it. And
Yep.
and if they're sensitized, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that was us in our situation.
Yeah.
But just like being able to like tell this story and like advocate for doing the mold testing on the front end and like that awareness. And
Yeah.
I think the stigma is like, oh, it's just mold. Like, don't worry about it. But
Right.
like, it is problematic. My husband didn't ever have any issues living in the home. He probably could have lived there forever and maybe been fine,
Yeah.
right? But for me, it was like instant. So you never know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we've learned so much just from like the home buying process and how important all of that is and how
Yeah.
important it is to work with the right people who know what they're doing and are knowledgeable about these things. So lessons learned.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share this story, and hopefully I help other people make better decisions in the home buying process and be aware of that stuff. So
It's all about making healthy choices.
yeah.
There's no sugar in here, I'm sure. Thank you so much for your
Of
time.
course.
And congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
Hope you and your husband keep in touch.
Yeah.
Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I know this was a long one, but man, what a great story. So this is the way it should look. And hopefully this is the model that we get to use to say, let's even do it better next time. So be safe. Thanks. Bye.